A little bit about myself. My name is Scott Knudsen. I'm with Signature Home Inspection. We've been in business going on 20 years now. I believe it's May of next year will be our 20th year in business. Started the business in Salt Lake City, Utah, moved it down here about 10 years ago. We're located in Orange County, California. Our office is in Santa Ana. However, we do cover North San Diego, Orange County, LA, parts of LA County, San Bernardino, and Riverside. If you have an inspection that you need done, just let us know. We do home inspections. We do commercial property inspections. We can do sewer, radon inspections, methamphetamine inspections, mold inspections, pool and spa. So we do a whole gamut of the inspections for you if you need those done. If there's something that we cannot do, we can help you find somebody that can do that for you. Some common ones that we get requests are asbestos and lead, which are typically need to be done by an environmental, that's certified with the state to do those. We don't typically do those. We don't do those because the licensing that's required and the demand and the insurance is just not feasible for us to have to go through all those for the amount of work that we would actually get from them. So we just typically will sub those two out. This class is called New Homes, A Closer Look. So we're going to go through some of the things that you would see if you are dealing with new homes. I actually need to update this presentation because there's new technology that's come out that I want to add to this class. For example, smart thermostats. There's solar panels that are now coming out. There's garage door openers. There's all kinds of security things that now can be in a home. And I just want to update this presentation. However, this is our last class of the year, so we are going to stick with this presentation for now. Just so you know, we do have other classes that we teach. I don't know if anybody has ever been on any of our classes, but we do have a couple of home inspection classes. We've got a mold class, we've got some lead classes, we've got some electrical classes, and we also have a septic tank class. So look for those coming next year, and we can get you in those classes as well. So let's get started here. Let me go through here in presentation this. All right, so the outline, so basically what we're gonna cover is what's new in homes. So we're going to go over an overview of some of the newer components found today in new homes. And in part two, we're going to do typical problem areas. The common problems with new homes are different than those found in resale homes. What are the common problems in new homes? And then part three, inspection of new homes, what we're typically seeing when we're out there doing an inspection. So regarding inspections, I would highly recommend that if you are dealing with the new home construction, that you have a home inspection, because there are times that we have caught things on new homes. We did one the other day where I believe there was 25 write-ups at the house. So, you know, we do see stuff. Now, as a home inspection on a new property, we're not going to be the ones that are going to be going through with the blue tape and marking up all the little blemishes on the wall. That's something that the client would need to do prior to their close. But they would typically have us come in. So for example, I would think the biggest one that we found during an inspection was we did a 5,000 square foot house, and the AC, well, the three AC units weren't cooling the property off, but they were brand new AC units. Couldn't figure out what was going on. It was blowing cool, but it wasn't keeping the house cool. So at the very end of the inspection, went up in the attic, poked my head up, and as soon as I poked my head up, found that there was no insulation. The builder had forgot to blow the insulation. Now that probably would have been caught later on, but at the same time, how long would have been before they caught that? I mean, if they caught it after the typical 1 year warranty that they give you, then it's too late. So stuff like that. And I remember specifically the buyer said, I hired you for a reason, and this is the exact reason why I paid you to do this, because I wanted to make sure we caught everything. And he was very happy that that was caught and taken care of. So. All right, so part one, what's new in homes? So with people around you, discuss the following. So keep in mind, this class is normally taught in person, so we're not going to be able to go around and discuss this with people, but some issues you've come across when listing home, just think inside, what have you seen when you've come across the new listing? Issues with a client when considering a new home, were any of these deal breakers? So, just kind of think about that out loud or in your head or silently, and you can think of that. So new home buyers are seeing some new elements in the home. Here are a few of the most visible and notable. Truss joists will replace solid wood joists. So we're seeing a lot more of the construction where they're using the prefabricated truss joists instead of the solid wood joists. And the reason why is because it's cheaper. They're called, we call them engineered joists. It's not solid woods, it's actually compressed wood, and we're typically seeing that on most homes. Now, custom homes may still use the solid wood joists, but not all the time. So, and if they are, it's usually a lot more expensive. Plastic water supply piping becoming more common. The days of using galvanized, those are long gone. Copper, you still see copper, but copper is so much more expensive now that you're seeing what's called plastic piping, which is commonly called PEX. So especially if you're seeing a house that's being repiped, if they've had a slab leak, typically they're going to repipe the house with PEX, which is a plastic water supply piping, because it's a lot easier to install. Arc fault circuit interrupters and expanded use of GFCIs. In our reports, we have a comment in there to where we will label or will note when GFCIs were implemented. For example, they first started in bathrooms, then they expanded to kitchens, then they expanded to garages, then they expanded to the outside. Now they're putting them near laundry areas. So typically the rule of thumb with the expanded use of GFCIs would be within 6 feet of water. Why 6 feet? Because that's the average length of an extension cord or the cord itself. And then we're also utilizing more efficient HVAC systems. Typically homes, AC units that are older than 2010. If you have a property that has a AC unit that's older than 2010, it's going to be very difficult to recharge those. So we also have a disclaimer, and we have a PDF in our reports where if we find a house that has a unit that's over 2010, it's going to be in there in our report noted, because if the unit goes out, they're most likely going to have to replace the unit because they're not going to be able to recharge it, for example. So we're running into that stuff now. So number one, truss joists replace solid wood. So they've been around for a long time. They will become more common as standard dimensional lumber gets harder to find, more expensive to process and transport. We've seen that this year with the pandemic. The lumber prices were outrageous this year. They've started to come down, but they're still having issues. So a lot of it's supply and demand. A lot of it's because a lot of it's delivered from Canada. There was border restrictions. It took longer to get here, and there was a demand for new homes as well. So I've got a friend that works for Lennar up in Salt Lake City, and he was having. He said his biggest issue. He was a project manager. His biggest issue was getting the beams. They could not get certain size beams, and it was delaying the house building process. So it was really slowing down new home construction. Let's see here. I gotta move this thing. Dimensional lumber. So wood members cut from trees. These are some of the things that you would see on the solid. Here in this picture, you can also see some metal stud framing as well. The house that I live in was actually built with metal studs. It's considered a work-live loft, so the main area was commercial. Whether that has anything to do with it, I'm not sure. But whenever I go to hang a TV, it's a very difficult challenge for me, and I end up having to hire it out because the studs are wider than the typical 2 feet. Well, they're actually 2 feet versus 18 inches on center. So it's a little bit harder to hang something. So, but with this, if you can see here, these are going to be the wood members that are cut from trees. They're solid, And the next picture, we'll see the truss joist. So if you've ever been in a new home construction during different phases of the build, this is what you're typically going to see. So this is going to be, this would be the second floor here. You know, during our own inspection, we will look for, you know, any kind of creaks or any kind of wobbling or anything like that. And typically that's due to the subfloor losing its, you know, the glue becoming compromised and using nails versus screws. So anyway, truss joist maximizes the use of wood fibers placed only where needed, eye-shaped profile. So if you can see over here to the left, you can see where it looks like more like of an eye. Uses less wood fiber, 50% less, and it's more environmentally friendly. So you can see here the reason why they would go to that. So here's a couple different trusses and beams. These are all compressed wood. Does it make it any, does it make it not as strong? I mean, it's just as strong. So, but it's more environmentally friendly and uses less wood. And also longer clear spans. So custom homes, open concept. Back in the day, we used to have, you know, especially if you've seen an older home, the homes were really choppy inside. So you'd go in and everything was closed off. You'd have like a galley kitchen. You'd have to go around the wall to get in the living room. You'd have to, you know, there's all the rooms were sectioned off. I'm not sure if that practice will ever come back in, but today more of it's an open concept. So for example, the kitchen will open and flow right into the living room with no walls or beams or anything, or not beams, but posts, you know, pillars blocking, you know, holding everything up. So it's more open concept. Truss joist can clear span long distances. So it's possible to eliminate the need for a main beam at the mid span. Truss joists and growing pains. So with that, when they've been building this, now we're going to get into some technical stuff here, which you don't really necessarily need to know. I don't memorize it. I don't want to know it. I just want to know the reason why. So floors, you know, when they started utilizing these truss joists, the floors seemed bouncy to some. Why? Because of the long clear spans, you had more vibration transfer, different bounce and vibration characteristics compared to dimensional lumber. Floors evaluated with no furniture load. So a lot of times when they're building a new house and you don't have any furniture like a grand piano, you're not getting that bounce. And that's, you know, you're feeling more of that versus if you have furniture in the house. It's kind of the same thing as, you know, when you're in a house, when there's no furniture, no rugs or anything, it's a lot louder. You know, when you've got furniture in there, it's just, you know, it makes a big difference. Long clear span. So allowable deflection is a percentage of span. Longer span means greater deflections. So they will use this terminology during the new home build. If you ever have a builder hear about that, or, you know, if they ever talking about this, you'll know a little bit more about it. So for example, an L360 versus an L480 example, span is 15 feet. If you have a 15 feet span, you've got an L360 versus a 480. An L360 gives a deflection of a ½ inch. An L480 gives a deflection of 3/8 of an inch. So deflection means that vibration. All right, so older truss installations were bouncy. This was the common problem back then. So you'd have a matched deflection and a strength of a dimensional lumber. L360 left a perception of a bouncy floor. Many builders now use a much higher level for stiffness. For example, an L480 or greater. It doesn't feel as bouncy. So when you're talking with the builder, you could, you know, maybe ask what joist installations are they utilizing. Buyer tip, we talked about this just now. Ask buyer for details on the floor design. Builders can cut costs by using less stiff floor structure, still within building code. Stiffer floor costs more, but feels better. So basically the question is, what's the deflection design criteria used for the floor design, such as an L360 or an L480, etc. These are some of the questions you could ask the builder if there's concerns. Second one that we're seeing change in, and most of it's been, you know, most of the new homes are now using PEX. So you've got the plastic water supply pipe. Talking about interior water supply piping, not necessarily coming into the house. Copper has been the standard of quality for many years. Early plastic pipe was a problem such as polybutylene. So we don't see that too much in Orange County. Actually, the only time I've actually seen it in Southern California, which is polybutylene piping, it's the old gray piping that would sometimes have like a blue or an orange line through the middle of it. Blue would be cold, I'm sorry, red would be hot. The only time I've seen that was down in northern San Diego County. And it happened one time as I was coming out of the attic. I kind of peeked out of the corner of my eye and I saw it. And I was kind of surprised by it because we just don't see it that often down here. So automatically, when I see that type of piping or we see that type of piping, it's recommended that it be further evaluated by a plumber, because the problems with that type of piping was the joints were they were having leaks. And so as I came out of the house, it made sense that there was some patches in the ceilings in various locations of that house where they had had problems with that type of piping. Why they didn't disclose it, I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't, wasn't aware of that they had to disclose it. I'm not sure, but it was something to where that was an issue. When I got finished with the inspection, the buyer hadn't been there yet, the realtor hadn't come back, and the neighbor had come over and says, I kind of asked him if he'd had any issues with his plumbing, and he just opened up his vault of all the information that he'd had some problems with it. So again, that was some early issues that they had with plastic pipe. Now PEX, they haven't had any issues unless it was installed incorrectly, meaning they didn't use the right clamper. But who knows? Maybe in another 20 years they start having issues with it because it's a new technology. I mean, I don't want to say it's new, but it's kind of like when you build a house. For example, on some of the electrical panels that we come across, we'll see Federal Pacific, we'll see Zensco. At the time of the install, they were great, but later on, they come to find out that the breakers were defective and they recommend replacing the panels now. So that may be the issue with PEX later on, but as of right now, it's a go, everything's good. And then also current plastic pipe does not have to have the problems of the poly beat. So as of right now, there's no issues with PEX. We haven't had any of those type of issues. Also wide plastic pipe. It's quick to install, fewer joints, long rolls of pipe pulled through the house. Like I was saying earlier, it's just a lot easier to install. I don't see this too often in Southern California, but when I was up in Salt Lake City, they even had a plumbing manifold to where it was kind of like a breaker box where basically you open up the panel and you can actually shut off the water to certain areas of the house by turning the key. They had like this little key that you could go in there and you push it in the hole and you turn it. So if you needed to turn the water off to the bathroom or upstairs bathroom in the master or the primary bathroom, you could go in there and it was labeled and you could just turn the water off. So you didn't have to turn the whole water off to the whole house. I don't see that too much here, but in Southern California, but that is, it is possible to have that. Multiple parallel runs rather than a series tree type structure. So better water flow characteristics, less pressure drop with multiple fixture operation. So with this plastic piping, some of the older homes that had the galvanized or the copper, you would turn that, you'd turn on the shower, and when you're in the shower, someone would flush the toilet and all of a sudden there goes your hot water or your cold water, and then all of a sudden you're getting scalded. So you don't see that so much anymore, but some of the older houses, that would be an issue. Copper piping, here you can see this is what copper piping would look like. This guy's actually soldering the joints here. But with the PEX now, you've got the, these are just the different types of piping that you have. You got the copper, you've got the PEX here, and then you've got the steel braided. This is going to be more so on the plumbing fixtures, like the toilets and so forth. And then you get the PVC. Quality, the plastic used today is PEX. So that's the most common that we're going to see right now. It's cross-linked polyethylene. It's not a new system. It's been used in many years for Europe for supply plumbing and radiant heating applications. It's a high quality system and it's got a long life. So that's typically what you're going to see in new homes. If you want to know whether or not a house has PEX, a lot of times if you look underneath the sinks or around the toilet, you can see the piping that's coming through the wall. If it's red or blue, then you got a good idea that it's been piped with PEX. Number three, AFCI and GFCI. So GFCI, what is a GFCI? So most of you probably are aware what GFCIs are. They are ground fault circuit interrupters. They help prevent serious electrocution, not new, but newly expanded use. So like I was saying earlier, there's been certain dates on homes. Now, as we're doing home inspections, even if it wasn't required at the time of the build, we still typically recommend that GFCI be installed, because when we're inspecting homes, we want to comment on how houses would be built today. So does that mean that if the house is built in 1940s, it doesn't need a GFCI? Well, it's still recommended, but it would be up to you guys as during your negotiations if you want to bring that up to current standard or not. Typically, I don't believe it's required to bring it up unless they pull a permit, and they are doing a remodel and they need to pull a permit. A lot of times I can tell. Sometimes people will have us do an inspection on a house that's been flipped, and they will ask us if we know if they pulled permits. We don't pull permits. We don't inspect for, we're not looking for permits on new construction. But sometimes I'll say, okay, your kitchen has been recently updated as within the last year, and there are no GFCIs. So that's typically a good sign that that the kitchen was not permitted. AFCI, arc fault circuit interrupters. These are the little blue ones in the breaker box where it has a little blue button on them. They're called arc fault circuit interrupters. They protect the house from possible fire, from arcing in the electrical system. They've only been used in new homes since 2006. And then this is an example of what the AFCI looks like. This is going to be the breaker in the breaker box. You've got the switch here, and then you've got the little blue test button. So, for example, if somebody was to go in and put a picture hook, picture frame up and nail it into the wiring, it's going to automatically flip that breaker and kill the power to that, so there's no spark. So you got the drywall, electrical wire, wall stud. I always recommend that you use a stud finder, so you have a good idea. You want to try to find that stud if possible, or don't use nails that are so deep. So AFCIs are currently used only for bedroom circuits in new homes. They are going to probably expand more of these. They're not required in all areas of the home because of the high cost of these breakers. Over time, more areas of the home will require AFCI protection due to changing electrical codes. Efficient air conditioning. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard of SEER, but SEER stands for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. As of 2006, there are new minimum efficiency requirements, and that regards to SEER. So it's kind of interesting as they're becoming more energy efficient, but the units are getting bigger. I don't know if you've seen some of these newer units, but man, sometimes they are just humongous. Air conditioning. So new systems are at least 30% more efficient than systems from a few years ago. Minimum SEER of 13 since 2006. Energy Star rating, minimum SEER 14. So that's to get the Energy Star rating. Prior to 1987, typical was 7 or 8. So they've doubled that since 87. From 87 to 2006, the minimum was 10. Some today are over 17 and up to 21. So, the AC units are becoming more efficient. Also, you're seeing more high efficiency furnaces. They're not new, but the costs have come down, reliability have gone up. If you want to know if a unit is a high efficiency unit, a good indicator is the type of flue that it's using. If you see a plastic flue as your return or your exhaust, and also your return, so you're piping air in from the outside versus the inside, then you're typically running a high efficiency furnace. In the past, the benefit versus cost were marginal, so they weren't widely used. High efficiency furnaces only 12 to 15% more efficient than the mids, but cost 40% more to purchase, more repairs and shorter life cycle. So they're not new, but they're not as used anymore. So All right, hopefully that makes sense. Part 2, common problem areas and new homes. So we're going to go over some of the common problem areas. Sorry, I'm going to move my little image here. All right, so there's no perfect homes, even new ones. So some of the things that we see during a home inspection are on new home construction. It should be no surprise to this group that there is no such thing as a perfect home. I think in the 20 years that I've been doing home inspections, there's only been one home where I didn't find anything. And it was, it kind of set me back. Most of the time we're finding items even on new construction. So the other thing that we're coming across right now is, and I don't know if it's because of what's going on with new construction, the delays that are happening, but if you're gonna book an inspection on a new construction, make sure that the utilities have been connected. We're seeing more and more where we're showing up the property and the gas meter hasn't been installed. No gas to the property. We showed up the other day where the electrical meter had been installed, and the inspection had been rescheduled twice already. And so even if you have to, as a real estate agent, drive over there and verify that everything's been turned on and everything's been connected, because there's no reason to do an inspection on a new home construction if the gas meter is not connected, if the electrical's not on, it's not ready. Don't let the builder push your buyer into doing their final walkthrough or doing their final inspections when that stuff's not connected. It's not ready. It's not done. There's no way that you can check the furnaces or the water heaters, etc. There's just not a possible way to do it. We can't check furnaces. We can't check water heaters. We can do a visual. We can make sure they're installed correctly, but as far as being operational, there's not a way for us to do that. And then also new homes are the same. It's just that the problems are different. So we inspect a new home just like we would an older home. That's the same process, but we just typically find different issues. Problem areas. A lot of things that we see that are common would be incomplete work. It's the most common problem. We'll come in and stuff's not done. Like I was mentioning earlier, the gas meter is nowhere to be found. It hasn't been installed by the gas company yet. They haven't finished painting. The carpet's not installed. I mean, it's amazing when we show up and it's supposed to be ready and there's stuff that's not done. Also we'll be there during the inspection and they still got workers there. So my recommendation as a real estate agent or a buyer is do not have us come in until it's done. Verify that they are ready for us. Because they may say, yeah, you're good to go, and they've got all this work to do in a week. And, if they say they're a week out, they're probably 2 weeks out. So just kind of keep that in mind. Damage. We find a lot of stuff that's been damaged. Sometimes, I've got a friend that just bought a home up in Salt Lake City, and he was outraged about the sub quality of work. Even when I went and visited, about a month ago, I stayed over at his house. I mean, yes, I'm an inspector, but I mean, when you're seeing doorknobs that are dinged, it might not be a big deal, but it's annoying. It's like, why did they not catch this? You walk into a bedroom and you can see 2 different shades of paint, where you can see, the first coat they used flat and then they did some touch up with high gloss. You notice that type of stuff. Trim work that hasn't been done correctly, tiles that aren't grouted. I went into a house the other day where the tiles were not grouted. I went and looked underneath the sink, and the tile underneath the sink wasn't grouted. So there's a lot of incomplete work or damage. Sometimes you'll see fridges that have been dinged. It's like, really, why would you even install that if it's got a ding in it? A new homeowner doesn't want to have to deal with that. And then you find stuff that's missing. And I would say the biggest thing right now is imperfect workmanship. And this is something that I've seen over the years is that when we're in a market, when we're in a hot market like we are today, and they're building as fast as they can, and they're having problems finding subcontractors, the workmanship is subpar. If we're in a recession and the market isn't hot, they have longer to build the houses. They're more focused on the workmanship. But when they're throwing houses up as fast as they can, the workmanship suffers. And like we were talking about earlier, there's missing stuff. Sometimes we'll go into a closet, it's supposed to have shelves, there's no shelves. They're missing doorknobs. Like I said, missing insulation up in the attic, talked about earlier. So these are some of the problem areas that we find. Roof issues. One time I went up into the attic and was checking the flue on a high efficiency furnace, and I just grabbed onto the flue and it just started to move. It wasn't connected properly. You get up into the attic and the insulation isn't over the hatch. They've installed the insulation improperly. There's just all kinds of different things. So just because it's a new home doesn't mean that it's done correctly. So we're going to go over some of the examples. I went through some earlier, but we're going to go through some of the stuff that they recommend on this presentation. Interior and exterior finish issues. Those are probably the biggest ones that buyers will notice. We've had clients that say, hey, I want to hire you. I want you to go, sometimes their expectations are that they're going to give us the blue tape and we're going to go through and mark all the blemishes. That's not our home. We're probably not going to be as detailed. We typically recommend that the homeowner do that. Go through there, because there's going to be things where you're going to see paint drops on the window frames, that need to be cleaned up and need to be done. My friend that bought that new house, that I was telling you about, he basically went through the house and had, it was covered with blue tape, and the builder's response was, it's industry standard. And his question was, because he worked for me, was an inspector for me. He's like, I need a list of what the industry standard is. And the guy couldn't give it to him. That was just his excuse of the sub-quality work that was being provided. So don't let the builders say that to you, that it's industry standard to have two different shades of paint in a bedroom, for example. So, and there was an area in his living room that wasn't level. On a brand new house, you shouldn't have that issue. You shouldn't have the squeakiness that you would hear from the floors, subfloors being screwed down properly. So grading issues, a lot of times on new home construction, especially if they've had it landscaped, a lot of times they have the pavers or the sidewalk where they have grading issues, where they didn't grade the sidewalks or the soil properly. Sometimes they bring in, subcontractors after, and they put in pavers, or they put in that new fake grass, and they put it right up against the stucco siding. You can't do that. You have to have a clearance so that weep screed underneath the stucco siding has room to drain moisture out if it does get behind your wall. So grading issues are something that we see often. Roofing issues, we see that quite a bit. A lot of homes aren't required to have gutters and downspouts. And if they do put the gutters and downspouts in, they terminate the gutters and the downspouts right up against the house. Those issues we find where they should have extensions, so you're draining the water away from the foundation. We come across insulation and ducting issues where we'll get up in the attic and the ducting is disconnected or haven't been connected properly, or they're missing insulation in certain areas. And then we also do see structural issues as well. Interior and exterior. So some things that we see on the interior: tile and floor damage. Tile and floor damage are a common defect where the grout wasn't done properly. It could be a minor repair or it could be a major issue. There's been times where I've walked into a brand new build. I walked into the primary bathroom and the tiles are basically creaking. They didn't use enough mortar. They didn't float it well, and the grout's already started to deteriorate. Sometimes in showers, where you'll see in the corners of the showers, it's not uncommon to see cracks that will go down, but they've got to use the right grout that will expand when it starts to shrink, and you don't see that crack that goes on there. So this type of stuff can be caused by floor framing issues, subfloor issues, inadequate mortar thickness for tile type, like I was mentioning earlier, inadequate floor stiffness for tile type, or sloppy tile or grout work. A lot of the times it's just sloppy tile or grout work because they're hiring whoever they can get in there to get the job done, especially with the way people are quitting their jobs after the market crash of 2008, 2009. A lot of the trades people that were working in this type of trade quit because, they didn't quit, they just didn't have any work, and so they found other jobs, they found other careers. They went back to school, educated themselves, and so now we're doing We're doing the work with less qualified people. For example, when I was up at my friend's house up in Salt Lake City, when I woke up, I was looking out the bedroom window. They were framing the building next door, and the first thing I thought was, man, those kids are young looking. I mean, they couldn't have been any older than 18 years old. So, they're doing what they can to fill the jobs. But, when you've got an 18-year-old out there, they can't be on the job that long. So they're probably having to be managed a lot more, and there's going to be mistakes made. So here's the comment when I was talking about earlier. The tile and grout damage is very common. A lot of times when you're grouting this stuff will shrink on the joints. And when you have that, this is something that, if you see this on a new construction, typically you have a 1-year homeowner's warranty. This is something that before your inspection, before that 1-year warranty expires, you'd want to have the builder come out and fix this. We do offer new home warranty inspections for this purpose alone. It's usually recommended that if somebody has a new they buy a new home, they should hire a home inspector to come out before the 12-month warranty is up and have us come out, and then we'll give them a report of the items that the builder needs to repair. It might be a quicker inspection. It might not find as many defects, but at least gives you the documentation that you can go back to the builder and say, hey, listen, these are the things I want you to fix. Here we go. We got sub-quality workmanship. You've got the flooring is not even lined up with the trim around the door. You've also got some cracking already. Water leaks are a common issue in new homes, whether it be improper caulking or grout, missing or sloppy flashing. That would be out on the roof. Foundation shrinkage cracks. We won't typically see that too much because we don't have basements, but in basements, sometimes when they're doing pours and they don't mix the cement like they're supposed to, then you can get foundation shrinkage cracks. Here is a brand new construction in a newer home. This is down in the basement. You can already see where they've got a leak down in their basement. This is new construction. Siding, poor siding installation is a common new home defect. Buckling or bowing of siding material, improper attachment, wood siding too close to the roof, and then also poor flashing. So like I was saying earlier, sometimes they will have landscaping contractors come in after, if that's part of the the purchase of the home, and they come in afterwards and they just especially if they haven't took the grade down low enough, they come in, start planting these beautiful trees, and they bring the soil up over the stucco siding, and then you've got issues. You get the pop nails on some of the siding, grading issues. This is where, again, this hasn't been backfilled yet, but this is going to be a basement where they need to properly backfill this. And, they've got to actually waterproof the foundation wall as well. Here's on a home. This is actually a picture that I took up in Salt Lake City. Again, I need to update this, but here's a couple of issues here. This is an issue basically because of the downspout. So if you ever see a home inspection report, even in Southern California, and you say, oh my gosh, they're being nitpicky about the downspouts, there's a reason. Over time, the downspouts, you're basically taking all the water from the roof during the rainstorm and you're putting it in one location, and you're not pulling that way. So they've got a splash block here, but it's improper. The water is not, it's not taking it away. They should have either a below grade or they should have above grade, and they should pull that water out and away from the wall. Putting that splash block here is not working. It's basically taking this water and putting it against this area. And you can see here how it's settled that backfill. And now you've got, every time it rains, you're having water that's going down and it's floating towards the basement. Or you can have the grading issue where the grade's too high. You can see here, there's no way that if you get moisture behind the wall, that the weep screed right now is obstructed. So underneath this wall, there's supposed to be a weep screed. It's a metal screen that basically, if there's any kind of moisture that gets behind the wall, it can drain out. If you put the soil up too high, you're not able to drain that. Another issue in Southern California would be subterranean termites. So basically here is your foundation wall, and above that foundation wall would be the bottom sill plate. And that sill plate is typically made out of redwood. However, subterranean termites will still go at it. So subterranean termites, they're a soft-bodied insect and they don't like to be exposed to elements. So this is perfect for them. They will come up, and I don't know if you've ever seen the mud tubes, but on this one, they wouldn't even need mud tubes. They could just go right in. Roofing issues, if they're not using the correct nail pattern, you can see here where this is a brand new house, and with the windstorm, it's already knocked back some of the shingles that are come up. You've got flashing issues, or you've got improper installation. Here, you're going to have, this is going to be, I believe this is a fascia, or no, a soffit, where it's just basically incomplete. Missing shingle and flashing at the gable. Here you can see here where they haven't finished it. We see this, believe me. You've got, this is going to be on a tile roof. You can see the mortar here. It's cracking. It's broken already. Falling out of place. Insulation and ducting, missing insulation in the attic. I mean, like I said, I don't see it very often when the whole attic hasn't been insulated, but I have seen it. I'd probably say at least 10 times I've seen it. Not a lot, but that 10 times, that's enough to be a big issue when the new homeowner takes over, especially if you didn't have an inspection. Some people may say, well, why didn't the builder inspect it? The city building inspector catch that? But the city building inspector is there during different times of the build. And so he may have been up there before the installation and might not have come back and done this. He might have thought, well, it's okay, you know, I saw it. But he's not as thorough. The building inspector is not going to be as thorough as a home inspector checking this stuff out. 6 inches of insulation is supposed to be 10.5 on the, or 10.75 on the data plate, so they didn't install enough insulation. Here you can see the ductwork that was installed incorrectly. You can see the air gaps here. It wasn't cinched properly to the supply. Disconnected ducting. We see this on new construction. They didn't screw this together. I mean, this is just self-explanatory. I mean, there was no, this register basically was not connected. So there was no airflow coming out of this. Structure, you can see here, let's go back to that picture here. Basically, you've got, you know, they do have, they call it pre-drywall inspections. We don't actually do those, but there are some people that will actually do pre-drywall inspections where they will come out before they put up the drywall to make sure everything was done correctly. That's something that you can hire somebody to do if you want to have that done. Builders hate it, but you should have that right to be able to do that type of inspection. This is foundation cracks already. Thing about the concrete is that if it's concrete, at some point it's going to crack. It just depends on the severity of the crack. Here you've got just a poor job of the pour here when they pour this. I mean, this should never have, they should never have allowed this to proceed with this type of damage on the concrete. I mean, they've got huge sections that have basically broken apart, and they've tried to fix this with mortar, you know, and it's just not done correctly. You know, this is brand new construction. You've got a big settlement crack already, and they haven't even finished the house. Another foundation crack that we see, excessive brick overhang. You can see this. This is just improper. They just either the architect was off on the plans, or the framers were wrong. Usually the foundation is poured first, and they should have lined that up properly. Here is a picture that where the plumber had come in and cut the floor joist so he could make his stuff fit. This is a no-no. This needs to be repaired. This is a foundation issue, a structural issue. Or not a foundation, it's a structural issue. Believe me, I've seen plenty of this. And they look at you like, oh, the plumbers aren't there when they're doing the framing. They could care less about the framers. All they want to do is make sure that they get their plumbing installed the way it needs to be installed. They're not thinking. For some reason, you wonder, what are they thinking when they're cutting that? So it's hard to understand. Same here, floor truss cut to install the toilet. Can't do that. It's done incorrectly. You've got a structural issue here. Damaged floor joists. This floor joist should never have been used, even if it was okay at the time. It's now damaged. Also, we'll see no truss hangers installed. Basically, they'll try to nail this to the, yeah, it's not done correctly. It's got to have a joist hanger or truss hanger, or the improper truss hanger. It's not done correctly. You know, it's not the right truss hanger. It needs to go all the way up. Sloppy work, you can tell. Cross bracing not properly installed. It's just plain crazy, some of the stuff. So this is just kind of a funny photo for you. Seriously, I mean, this wasn't a picture I took. This is a picture that I found off the internet. But how are you going to get your car in that driveway? So sidewalk looks nice, but I mean, come on, why'd they put the houses so high? They should have added. This is just a builder that should be out of business. Yeah, great. Look at that. That's a 4-wheel drive truck, and that would be a challenge to get up that, especially if it's snowing. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's not even clearing. Inspection of new homes. So there are what's called, like I was saying earlier, a phased inspection. It's an inspection during construction. Typically, banks will hire inspectors or companies that will do this. And say, for example, you're building a new home. Before they will release, they don't give the money all at once. They will release the money as they progress with the build. With that, the bank typically wants what's called a phase inspection. So before they will give out the next phase of money or the next allotment of money, they want an inspector to come out to make sure that everything was done the way it needed to be done before they need to go on to the next process. So again, it's an inspection during construction at various phases. It's usually after the foundation pour, before backfilling, etc. This is the best way to uncover construction defects. If I was building a new construction home, I would definitely make sure that there was phased inspections being done on the property. The cold shoulder. So this is a thing that we come across when we're on site. We've seen this more and more where builders are requiring ridiculous amounts of insurance. And the reason why is because they know that inspectors are not going to have, for example, a $3 million policy. They're not going to have a $1 million policy on their automobiles. It's ridiculous on some of these builders, to the point to where if we get a request where they want a $1 million policy on our car just to show up, I'm just going to tell the buyer, I'm not going to deal with that builder. It's an unrealistic request. They're trying to get you to where you don't hire an inspector. And if that's the case, probably not a good idea to deal with that builder. I understand some of the builders want to protect themselves. They don't want to have the liability, but at the same time, requiring a $3 million policy when most home inspectors can only get a $2 million E&O policy, it's not possible. So if you have a builder that's requiring that type of stuff, they're trying to hide something. They don't want you to have an independent inspector. So maybe that's something that you ask up front when you're buying a house, is what is required if we want to have a third-party inspector. It may be in the contract that you are not allowed on site. Keep that in mind. They may not allow third-party inspections. This has to be set up and cleared at the contract stage. Your inspector will be visiting the site at various stages specified in the contract. Also on the cold shoulder, a viable option to doing a phased inspection is a 30-day inspection. So a lot of times if we run into problems with the builder where they are making it difficult for us to be on site, then what I typically will tell the builder or the buyer is say, hey, move in, get moved in. We'll come in after you've moved in, and then we'll do the inspection, provide you the report. Then you can take that report to the builder because you have a 1-year warranty, and you can have them fix that stuff after the issues or after you've closed. Or the inspector and clients can do a walkthrough inspection 30 days after. They have to take possession to document defects to forward to the builder. This is followed up by an 11-month inspection to document all outstanding defects before the 12-month warranty. Talked about that briefly earlier. Warranty inspection. These are not as effective as phase inspections, but it's worthwhile and necessary to fulfill warranty claims within allowable reporting periods. An inspector will get at areas you may not be able to see. We can create a punch list of things for the builder to fix. No issues with site access as you've already taken possession. So we get this phase inspection, we get the warranty inspection. Most of the time, we're doing the warranty inspections. Sometimes people will wait until after they move in. Sometimes they'll wait until the 11th month. You can do both. I would typically probably wait until the 11th month unless you need to have something fixed right away. But the 11th month gives the house time to be broken into, you know, like broken in, because houses will move a little bit during settlement. You'll see stucco cracks appear. It's just, you know, it's just part of the new construction process. But with that, if you do, you know, wait for the 11 months, it gives you a good idea of, you know, okay, what was sub-quality workmanship, what tile has cracked, you know, what grout needs to be fixed and so forth. You can have all that done during the 11-month warranty. Just make sure you do it before the warranty expires. As far as the real estate agent, what information did you learn that will allow you to better assist your clients? You can utilize new strategies you'll use as a result of this course. And then what recommendations will you make to clients considering purchasing a home? So hopefully I've been able to answer some of those questions for you, giving you some insight on what to come across. My contact information here, we're almost to the hour. So thank you for coming to my course. Our contact information is Signature Home Inspection. If you need to reach us, you can either call us on the phone, 888-860-2688. You can visit our website. We have a lot of information on our website. We have a lot of maintenance videos. We have a trusted contractor list that we've tried to put together. You can actually schedule 24/7 on our website. A lot of times people will call me or email me and say, hey, I need to get an inspection. What do you have available? My recommendation typically is go on our website, because that's our real-time scheduler. Figure out when the best time and date is, then you can go on our website, you can schedule it online, get the confirmation that way. If you want a copy of this presentation, you can send me an email. My email is scott@signaturemore.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. Even if we're not your preferred inspector, if you have questions or you want to have us be a second pair of eyes on an inspection that just came back, feel free to email over to me. I'd be happy to give you my advice on it as well. So thanks for everybody for coming. Hopefully there was not too much sound in the background. And I wish everybody a happy holidays. It's coming up less than 10 days, 9 days. So hopefully everybody's got their Christmas shopping done. But until then, everybody have a good holiday, happy new year, and thanks for coming to my course.